Good evening. Welcome to Church by the Side of the Road. I'm Pastor Terrence Proctor, Senior Pastor here. And tonight, our Wednesday night candid COVID conversation is for all our parents and students. Help! My parents are homeschooling me. We have a special treat, a guest, an expert in the field, but we wanted to address some of the challenges with the schools being closed, students being responsible for the curriculum, and the ultimate objective is to bridge the gap, because no matter what Corona does now, or COVID-19 does now, September is coming. And so we want to give you some tips and tools to keep from going crazy, keep from turning on each other, and to make the most of the time in the curriculum. And more importantly, bridge the gap between spring quarter being interrupted and fall quarter beginning. So today we have, again, a special treat, master educator, teacher par exemplar, doctoral candidate. She's a teacher and a candidate for administrator. She serves now currently in the Tukwila School District. I'm going to call her Dr. Erin Herda. Put your hands together. She's here. She's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful treat. She's going to share with us what she has for us. Many of your questions came in. We have them. Feel free to join in on the comment section, any commentary or questions you have. She is a middle school teacher at this time. So to my elementary parents, to my preschool parents, high school parents, let us know how you're doing. Let us know what you're struggling with. Ask some pointed questions, and hopefully we can give you some tips, tools, and at the end, direct you to some resources. We're going to pray right now. We get your prayer list, where your prayer concerns via the website, via the voicemail. So keep sending them. Our staff, our ministers, our elders are praying with and for you. Father, we thank you, and we bow in the sufficiency of Christ, knowing that you do all things well. Lord, we ask that you have favor on our guests, and Lord, grant us wisdom for the navigation of these hours. These are our prayers. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, Miss Herda, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Well, great to have you here. It's an empty room, but the entire church family is excited to have you here, and what you have to offer is pertinent and paramount to many of our families. As I get feedback, and then I watch some of the social media feeds that some of the memes are hilarious, but they're rooted in the fact that for parents that never have homeschooled, this can be stressful.
Very much stressful.
And not only the parent, but as one who has a heart for students, these parents are driving the kids crazy. So how can we make the most of this opportunity? What are some things we need to look for?
I think the thing that I would start with is the mental and physical health are your top priority. None of us have done anything like this before. I know that my own daughters, they're 7 and 10, and they're very, very stressed out. So it's important that you don't put the pressure on yourself that you are a homeschool teacher. You are a distance learning help supporter or all of those things, but to put the pressure on yourself, it's not, we didn't all just decide to become homeschool teachers, right? And so trying to do that is unfair to ourselves and puts us under more pressure than is needed. I am a classroom teacher, and I'm not a homeschool teacher. Come on. So it's a really hard balance right now. I think another thing that is...
Hold on, before you go to that.
Sorry.
No, you did good. I skipped something.
Yes, sir.
Tell us about you before we jump into the meat of it.
Oh, yes, sir.
I've got a chance to sit in a couple of your classes. Tell us where you are now, what you teach. Tell us why you got into teaching and what you love about it.
Oh, okay, that's easy. All right, I currently teach ethnic studies at Showalter Middle School. I teach 7th grade, and then I also have an AVID class, which is like a college preparatory class, but it's really to help them build the skills of knowing how to study. It's actually helped me through my doctorate program, learning those study skills.
There it is.
I work with the racial equity team for the district and for the building in Showalter, and I went into this work because I failed. I dropped out of high school, and in middle school is when I started dropping, and so I wanted to be there for the students who are missed, those ones that fall between in the cracks.
Yes, ma'am.
So I went to Summit K-12. There were 56 kids in my 8th grade. Nobody asked me why I wasn't passing.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be that person there.
You wanted to be that.
Yeah.
Word. I appreciate it. All right, so you said one of the most important things is mental health fitness.
Yes.
Come on.
I know that some people don't have access. My sister is in Chicago. She's on the 22nd floor. She hasn't left her house in 2 months.
22nd floor of what? Her apartment?
Of her apartment building.
Come on.
So there are other people in these situations that are either can't get out or afraid to get out.
Yes, ma'am.
And so giving that mental and physical health is really important.
Right.
So even if it's just stretching, sitting in silence, just finding a way to get in some release of the stress that we're under. If you can get out, even better.
Yes.
You know, I've been taking long walks. We're fortunate to live in a neighborhood where we can get to the trail and take long walks. There's a lot of privilege involved in this COVID stay-at-home, so not all of us are in the same space, and it's important to acknowledge that we're all experiencing it differently.
Yes,
Taking that time for yourself might seem selfish sometimes, but especially with our young kids, we need to be able to be calm for them, because if you think about our elementary students, they're used to being with kids every day, and now they're not. And so the lack of that social interaction is really impacting their stress levels. Seattle School District has, or at least the school that my daughters go to, their counselors have been reaching out, and they've been doing counseling sessions. So if your schools are doing anything like that, please take advantage of it. That is huge. It's important to not structure an actual school day.
Okay.
That's too much pressure.
So no 6 periods.
No 6 periods, especially for the middle school. It's actually recommended 2.5 hours for the middle school, and for the kids to spend no more than 20 minutes on a subject. If you're going to do all 6 in that 2.5 hours, or you can pick days, like I'm going to do social studies on Monday. I'm going to do math and science on Tuesday. With Foster and Showalter, they've developed learning plans that do kind of go in a structured school day, but you're only looking at 1 or 2 subjects a day that you would be participating in, and that's just like if you want to contact your teacher.
So you see that, students? Pastor Proctor looking out for you. Mom and Dad and Grandma and them trying to make you do 7 hours of packet work. But the expert said, for my middle school students, 2.5 hours. But structure is important.
Structure is huge.
Come on, tell us more about that, please.
And I think even just our own practice at home, that waking up routine, our structure happens mostly in the morning.
Yes, ma'am.
It's easier for us to do our education time in the morning and then be more relaxed in the afternoon. Now, with our middle schoolers, they're sleeping in. You know, I asked the kids to meet me at 1, and they said, well, I wake up around 3. And I was like, well, you used to come to school at 8, so you'll be fine.
I wake up at 3. The day is over. We're working on night school now.
Right.
Yes.
But, you know, I think that kind of moves into my next tip.
Come on.
Is create a schedule that works for your family. If the one that the school provided works for your family, use it. And if it doesn't, don't use it. The checklist that my daughter's teacher sent out was a lot longer than what we can handle in our house.
Yes, ma'am.
So we break it up. They offer online connections. I try to get my students to the online connection, or my daughters to the online connection, so they can see their friends, right? But we structure our day the way we need to. My daughter loves to make her own schedule, and so that's the one we follow, and that works for our family. But if you don't have a schedule in place and you can't find what's working for your family, then using the guideline from the schools is a great option.
Great start.
It is a great start.
And then you can be flexible.
Yes.
Because any plan that's not flexible is not a good plan.
Correct.
There it is. So find what works for you. All right. What else you got?
In lieu of a schedule, even just a checklist. Have you done your math this week? Have you read this week? You know, science and social studies kind of get pushed to the side because everybody's worried about reading and math.
Yes.
And so how are you working in those other subjects? Just do a checklist, right? Make it easy on yourself because schedules can't always be accomplished,
right.
Especially for our families who the parents are not staying at home and are the essential workers who are having to leave. And so having that checklist can be their connection with their student on whether or not they got work done that day.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, health and fitness, structure, checklist. You guys getting this? All right, I hope it's blessing you. Come on.
I spoke to a few friends, and all of us agreed that the number one thing for all students, pre-K through college graduates, and parents, read.
Read.
Read. It enhances all your skills. It enhances your math skills, your reasoning. It's just essential to kind of helping any of the gaps that might be occurring from not being with your school and your educators in the buildings. Reading's going to help keep you up with your levels and where you're supposed to be. And you're supposed to read every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
A lot.
Every day that ends in Y.
And at a level that's a little bit challenging. And also just, I know libraries are closed, and that makes it frustrating. Right now, reach out to Tukwila School District. Over 1,400 books were donated to Showalter.
Come on.
They have an online system, and they're giving free books away to students. Students go on, and it's like they're buying it, but and then they're getting delivered to them.
Awesome.
So even when those books are gone, we'll find ways to get books into the hands of kids.
Reading helps bridge all the gaps. Mm-hmm. Cognitive, analytical, mm-hmm. Even the mathematics.
Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. All right.
The thing that was most helpful for me, my friend is a homeschooler. That's what she's been doing for years.
Yeah.
And she was the one that gave the advice to not treat it like a real school. But she said, create lessons in your everyday. So the girls yesterday were playing a fashion game. And I was like, okay, what do you need to know to make your own fashion line? What are the skills you need? What are all the things that you would need? So their simple game of designing clothes then turns into a lesson. You're going to cook something. You could have them do the math of like how much does it cost for all those items that go into dinner. You could have them doing the measurements, right? And this goes for all ages. Watching a TV show, ask them to question what they're seeing. Mm-hmm. You know, my daughters and I, we were talking about ethnic studies, and so I said, okay, you're watching more shows. What identities do you notice in that show? Who's left out? Whose storyline's bigger? So they're, you know, at 10 and 7 analyzing what they're watching, and now they can't stop. They're like, I'm picking this show, Mom, because not everybody is white, and the main character is a person of color. But they're doing it on their own.
Right. They're conscious.
They're conscious.
There it is.
And it's just those little things that you can bring in. Like when they're reading, just even asking them to retell you the younger ages, or asking them to connect it to something else with the older ages. Having high schoolers, you know, compare what they're reading to a movie. A lot of work can happen with the movies as well. So if you're going to be up all night watching movies, turn that into a lesson.
Yeah. Word. Awesome. Awesome. What else you got there?
The last one that I think is, if you have access to technology, encourage your students to connect through Google Classroom or Zoom or whatever platform the district is using, because one, we miss our students, and it is heartbreaking for the ones we have not connected with.
Yes.
And it is causing a lot of teacher stress, but we miss their faces. And they don't like to show their faces on the camera, so we miss their voices. Yeah. We miss their goofiness. I love seeing their COVID hairdos, seeing what's happening when they can't get a haircut.
Yes.
But that connection, although, you know, it seems like I really don't want to participate in it, you know, the student, they're like, I don't want to go, I don't want to wake up that early. They feel better after they do.
All right.
And so it adds to that mental piece. So
as a parent, taking your teacher hat off, your administrator hat, as a parent, what are some of the biggest challenges you're facing in homes? You have middle school and elementary
10-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Oh.
But the 10-year-old is like in middle schoolers,
Okay.
so it's balancing out. I love them. That's one of the things I'm remembering every day. I love them.
You have to say it to yourself.
I love them. I don't know, it's beautiful and it's difficult.
Okay.
I'm getting to spend time with them that I would never get to spend. I'm getting to direct them in their education and things that they wouldn't have gotten previously. But it is stressful trying to, well, I can't do their math, right? I can't. I try,
yeah.
And I get yelled at, and then it's stressful for me to get yelled at. So I think that it's that balance and trying to remember that their teachers are there, they're out there. We can connect with them by phone. We can connect with them by email. A lot of teachers have Google Voice, so they have a phone number you can reach, or text. I know a lot of people like to text now. My daughter's teacher does lunch with them, and it's like an hour of me getting to relax. And it's just over Zoom. So just those little moments that you can find to like not be the teacher and be the parent again.
Come on.
What I've noticed about my own daughters is I don't have to rush right now, so I don't do everything for them.
Yeah.
And they're becoming very independent. This morning, my daughter made me an egg, right? She's 7.
Word.
Yeah, she did the whole thing by herself and then served me.
Come on.
So, and with my other daughter, we got a dog, and she's like, I can't get the leash on him. And I was like, well, try. She's like, I can't. And I was like, give it one more try. And then she did it, and she felt proud of herself. And so it's just those moments now where I don't have to rush through things, that I can encourage that independence in them.
Awesome.
And that's been a blessing.
So we'd love to hear you all, your epiphanic moments on that end. We're going to go to the questions. I have another question. Let's put your educator administrator hat back on. As an educator, middle school educator, to all the parents who are wringing their hands and having new profound appreciation for the teachers in class, as an educator, what do you hope that the parents have learned about teaching their kids that you as a teacher want them to take away from this?
I think that even me, it's made me appreciate the elementary teachers even more. Because it is hard, and it's hard developmentally, and I hope that they see that the teachers do care and love for their students, even when that student has had, I don't know, like differences with their teachers, right? That teacher is trying, right? And it's hard when I have 170 students. And trying to manage all of those different personalities, it's rough.
And middle school personalities are a whole unique dynamic.
They're monsters in such a beautiful way. It is my favorite age.
Come on.
It is. I truly, truly appreciate the middle school mind.
All right.
But I also hope that they realize that, many of us out there are building relationships with their students and care for their students' success, and sometimes it's really hard, but our job is to keep pushing for them and to not give up on them, and that's a good lesson for us right now at home too.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, do we have some questions from online team?
Yes. First question, how do you teach your child during the day and work full time?
It's hard. I've heard from a lot of people that if you have 2 parents in the home, at least one parent is sacrificing their time. In my case, it's me. My husband works for UW Medical, and he has to be on the phones, and so I've had to set some really strict boundaries for when I have to be in meetings. I've had to explain that I am actually still currently working and am not off. I I think that's where that checklist comes in again too, of giving them like, here, go work, you need to do this, this, and this right now. If you have a meeting, that's a perfect time to go like, okay, you need to do your silent reading right now, independent reading right now. So like having those tasks they can do independently when you can't be any part of it.
Right. I think Russell Wilson said, teamwork makes the dream work.
Right.
And if you're a single parent, structure becomes a part of your team.
Yeah.
Because if you're working and your student is working, you structure it so that there's quiet time, time I can help, time you can intervene.
And if you happen to be by yourself but you have more than one child,
yes,
working that together too. So, you know, sometimes it could be a read aloud to the sibling or help the sibling with the math. Those types of things can give you that free time.
Awesome. I have a question here. How do I separate my role as teacher and parent?
I don't know. No, I do. It's really difficult. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but the end of the day doesn't ever seem to come. They
don't leave. The yellow bus doesn't come take them away.
No. So I think, you know, having some type of symbol to the end of the day is what we've been doing. And like I told you earlier, my 7-year-old said, "Mom, it's Wednesday. It's an early release day. Can we end school early?"
I think the best answer would be yes.
Yes, and that's what it is. They'll have days too where they will say, "Mom, can we have a late start today?" Yeah. And I say yes, because we're still going to get to what we need to get to. But so it's just saying, yes, school's over at 3.
My elementary teacher friend, Brother Ron Knight, thank you. Thank you for sending in some tips for our elementary dynamic and demographic. He was saying that the structure matters, and it has to be a distinct difference to whoever sent this question number 1 of when the school day ends and you're not teaching, you're parenting. You're not tutoring your mom, dad, uncle, auntie, or whoever the caregiver is. Now, as you structure that day, you get to define how that is, but it's important that you've communicated that to your student. Awesome. All right, another question. I'll come to the online in a second. What do I have to do to show my student the importance of taking homeschool serious?
I think it's a really complicated question. We've heard so many different messages, right, through the governor. It changes kind of a lot. So at first we weren't going to do any new learning. Now we're doing new learning. Now we're grading. So I think one thing is that we're going to go back to normal eventually, and you don't want to be falling behind. And right now, for high schoolers, that's a serious situation. They will earn incompletes, and they will have to retake those courses. But they actually have the opportunity right now to also get an A, right? So become that 4-point student that you have been struggling to be, because I was never a 4-point student. That's how I've been trying to spin it for my middle schoolers who are showing up. And we're probably only seeing maybe now 50% of our middle schoolers show up to assignments through classroom or through Zoom meetings and stuff like that. So also relying on your educators. If you have your student participating in those meetings, we are sending that message that you got to get through this work. You can take your time. Middle school and elementary, it's do no harm, right? We're just trying to keep them moving forward.
Don't make it worse.
Right. Do not make it worse. And if you have struggles with school, like I struggled in school and I did not like being there, it's not going to help if I fall behind.
Yeah.
So
it reaffirms why I don't want to do it.
Right, exactly.
I also would chime in, if I as a parent take it serious, and I don't mean over serious.
Yes, for sure.
But lay the foundation for how valuable this time is and this opportunity is, then my student will pick up on it. And if you push too hard, they may run from it. But if it's not important to you, it won't be important to them.
Yes. And to that effect, right, you know, your students, that teacher they dislike the most, it's usually because of the relationship, right? But if you're encouraging your student in a positive way And it's hard for all of us to not let our tempers flare when we're getting pushback about doing the work.
Yeah.
But to avoid that as much as possible, because sometimes that avoidance is that stress level that's going up in the kids.
And now, mind you, in the midst of this shut-in, we're all stressed.
Correct.
You're stressed.
Yes.
Your partner's stressed.
Yes.
And the kids absorb that. The students absorb it. So have some grace for that.
Yes.
Do we have another question from the line?
We do. The question says, can you please speak to how the school district could involve parents and community in their child's education?
This is we're going to get your doctorate right here.
Right. I think what we've been doing at Showalter is trying to keep our parent connection going with some meetings and trying to get parent voice of what they need and want. I think that's the most important part we need right now, is for parents also to be sharing with their schools and their teachers what they're going through, the difficulties they're having, the struggles, if it's content area, if it's getting them out of bed, all of those areas. That communication is helpful for us. And I think that just starting to view the school district and the parents as partners.
Teamwork.
Teamwork.
Not adversary.
Right.
And our students are pretty gifted at positioning parents,
Yes.
school, and teacher as adversaries.
Yes.
But teamwork, Russell said it, I stole it, make the dream work.
Yeah. Working together is the key to it.
Also, as a parent, seek to find out what exactly your educator is trying to accomplish so that you can be a better teammate in your child's education. You know where, you have an idea of where they're going with the curriculum or the class.
Yeah, for
Awesome.
sure.
All right, we have more?
Yes, thank you. There's a question that comes in, and this is from an educator also. She is working in the Tukwila School District. She says, how are you keeping track of student contact?
Oh, it's a lot of work. I'm sure they're experiencing the same thing. I found a system for myself that's working, and I think a lot of the middle school teachers have adopted this. We're using Google Forms and Google Sheets, and it's a lot of double entry, but it's worth it because I can see it visually. So what I've done is I have my class list, whatever I've posted on Classroom, and then I just put an X and a green spot next to any time that student has responded to that. And right now, and then it could also be through Google Voice, talking to a family, or an email, or if that student contacted another teacher, we're sharing that information with each other, so that we're reaching out to each other and saying, "Have you heard from so and so? I haven't had any contact." We've brought in our family liaisons to make contact with families. So we spend 5 days a week trying to make contact with our homeroom students, and that's who we're mainly making contact with, but then tracking other students through these classroom assignments on Google.
Awesome. I have a couple of questions here. How do I know I'm teaching my child the right materials?
I think right now any education is the right education. Yeah.
If nothing else, reading helps.
Reading, again, like doing the chores.
Yeah.
Talking about the systems that we're in, all of those things are going to help. And so it's not about mastering content right now as much as it is staying engaged, keeping it alive.
Now, you're in Tukwila School District, and I know Seattle School District has similar setup at several schools where students and parents and families can go get the curriculum and turn that in. How does that work? I've seen it here at Thorndike.
Here's my understanding. They are giving out packets, but they're not collecting the packets. Okay. So it is material that is grade level material that is moving students forward, but and they can get help through other platforms, but it isn't going to be.
It's not the drop off.
It's not the drop off.
All right.
Yeah, it's just to keep kids going and engaged.
That's a good way. One, to get out the house.
Yeah.
Functional.
Pick up a meal.
And then it helps with that question, how do I know I'm getting my student the right material? If you're working with what the school or the district is providing.
And if you're not getting that material from your school, you should be calling your school.
Yeah. Yes.
So earlier you touched on how do you teach and work full time, and we have a parent asking, if you're a single parent, how do you do that? How do you do both?
I think we addressed that, and let me just give her a breather for a second. I think some of the things I hear from my educators and administrators, how you structure that works, as Dr. Herda said, works for your family. Structure at my house is going to be different than yours. But you can set the structure that works for you and your student in a way that time, particularly if you're working from home, space, location of where you're working, all of that can be structured with healthy boundaries that allow you to be sane, efficient, effective, and get a break. I
did see a really funny but maybe I need it poster that was kind of like a scale. So it's like, I'm working, but you can come in. I'm working and I'm on a meeting, but it's okay if you have a question. And it went all the way down to, I cannot be interrupted right now. And so then you just put your marker next to where you're at, and that could be a solution depending on the age of your child, right? A kindergartner is not necessarily going to honor that system.
Neither the high school student.
Maybe. But they may not be awake.
It's not 3 o'clock. Yeah. But those type of tools can help, and
and setting those boundaries.
You setting those boundaries, and be careful not to try to adopt boundaries that someone else used that works for them. It may not work for your household.
Right.
You know your household. You be flexible. It works for you, and if it works for you, work it. Yes, ma'am.
One of our educators chimed in and said they should read aloud every day and try readworks.com. And the question is, what are some other resources that parents can use to help with those packets and that math and English that they haven't done in decades, maybe?
Right. I think, again, that is relying on the educators. We're working. Right? We're not off. And so if you can make contact with your educators, I know it's dependent on schools and how they're sending out information, but you always got the principal's number. So giving them a call and just saying, I need help with these specific things, I would hope that your educators would come to your assistance.
Second of all, if they don't, follow up.
Absolutely.
Every school, every district has made educators accessible.
Absolutely.
If you're having a problem with that, email the principal. He or she shall respond.
Yes, because I just want to reiterate, we are working and we are keeping ourselves available to do our job as educators. So asking for the help and that collaboration, right? That teamwork, trust that we will support you.
And I've seen some heroes, I've seen, call him, shake him up. He won't get up, wake his tail up. And I've seen teachers going above and beyond and then having Zoom meetings or all those whatever conference meetings, walking through the lesson with the students. So there's some great work going on. So hang in there, stand in there, keep swinging at it. All right, another question?
I have a question. No, not a question, but maybe a statement, and maybe you all can expound on it. So I really feel like it's important. I've got a 17-year-old in the house, and it is really, really a struggle, sort of, To be honest, yes, it is a struggle to make sure that we keep a schedule every day, and it requires us to be intentional and persistent about them getting up and getting ready to be prepared for a school time at home. And I think that it's really hard for children no matter what the age is, but we have to make sure that the parents understand how important it is for consistency and to make sure that that continues to happen, because in life you can't be wishy-washy about getting to work on time or getting to an appointment on time. You have to be consistent. So there's an area right there for us to be able to train ourselves and our children that we must be accountable to time. So if you all could expound on that and make that, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, I think that kind of leads to that other question of how to separate my role as teacher and parent. It's following that structure and setting, like, we're gonna get up at 7:30. You don't have to get up as early as you used to get up. You get to set those times, right? But when you get up, make it a routine of something that you're doing. With the littles, we were doing, we'd wake up, by 8 o'clock, school was on, we watched CNN 10, then we meditated together for 5 minutes. We've never done that before, but it was a new thing for us to try. And then my husband would take over, and he would do math with them until he had to go to work, and then when he started work, and I'd do work until then, and then he'd go to work, which is in our basement. And then I would take over, and often what I'm doing is teaching them what I'm teaching my students, just at an elementary level, but like keeping that routine. And then our structure kind of dissipates for the afternoon. But like I said, like our family, the morning structure works. For teenager families, it might be the afternoon structure that works. But yes, maintaining some type of structure and reminding our kiddos who are sleeping in, we're going back to reality someday. And we're going to have to go places.
You need to be ready. And second, or to add to that, when you hear us say structure, it's so important because it also triggers a different discipline in the brain. And you want that discipline. You don't want the academic critical thinking to be on vacation. The second part of structure is when you, as we said it, the effective one. When I say flexible, I don't mean wishy-washy. I mean we have to be accountable to the schedule, so that he or she can be responsible for the schedule. Without accountability, there's no one takes the responsibility, and that just leads to anarchy. And that's the absence of discipline, which will get in the way of your child's emotional development, social development, and academic growth.
And to some degree, like, we have to be the enforcers of that structure, because...
Put your administrator's hat on.
Right, those our babies are taking advantage of us working.
They are master manipulators and exploiters.
So they'll be like, well, you have a meeting. Can I watch a show? No. You can't. You can do this or this while I'm in my meeting. And kind of like enforcing those things still.
So structure, accountability, responsibility, reinforce those boundaries. Reinforce those boundaries. All right. Also, Dr. Herda, this one says, she's laughing, when you get your PhD and everybody had to call you doctor, I'm going to be the first one. I'm trying to get you a raise. What are the most important and complex content-related issues my child needs to understand by the end of the year? Now, I know that may be varying elementary,
for sure,
high school. From a middle school standpoint,
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I really think reading has a lot to do with it. Reading does help all of the skills, and so that part is there. The content-related ideas, so I'm thinking, we don't want our students sliding backwards in math. We do want to keep them engaged in science and history and language arts, because who knows, they might be testing again. They didn't do it this year for obvious reasons, but we don't know what that's going to look like for years to come. But also reaching out to your teachers.
Word. Awesome.
Reaching out to each content area and saying, what are the most important things this child needs?
Pastor?
Ma'am.
There is another question as you were talking about reading. So a parent or an educator has asked, for students with short attention spans, are audio books just as effective as sitting still and reading?
I was going to mention that earlier when somebody asked about resources. Audible made a whole library of children's books for free that you can access through Audible and listen to, and there are good ones. It's not just like the crappy ones that they don't want to put on there.
That they can't sell.
Yeah. Graphic novels count. There's a lot of online graphic novels. Those count. Audible, listening to books, it counts. It's just access to literacy is what we're really pushing.
As someone who works with ADD, ADHD for years, I would argue the answer to the question is yes, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. If your student's attention span allows him or her to read for 20 minutes, you get them 20s. You get them 20s before you go audio. And if you can get audio with the book.
Yes.
Because we're trying to grow the kid, to grow the students. Otherwise, and the other component of that is they actually sit still for the audio, the video, the YouTube, the TikTok. So don't be fooled. We're growing our students. So get their nose in a musky book.
Well, we did some research with my AVID class this year about how long you need to read.
Yeah.
The difference between reading just over 15 minutes a day and not reading, is huge. Yes. It is like exponentially enormous of like how many just words your child will gain in 13 years.
Come on.
There's a deficit of millions of words if they don't read every day for at least 20 minutes.
And let me throw my little 2 cents in. And when your vocabulary expounds exponentially, it affects your emotional health. Mm-hmm. What I've discovered, as many of us are emotionally immature because we can't find the words to express how we feel.
Mm-hmm. Why do toddlers throw tantrums?
Come on, they have a limited vocabulary. Why do teenagers throw tantrums? Mm-hmm. Limited vocabulary. So reading affects all of that. Absolutely. So yes, get their nose in the book. And audio does help, but don't let it replace.
I agree, 100%.
Don't let it replace it. Yeah. All right. You have another one? I got some more.
Someone made a really good comment, and I'd like to just say it, but it says it's important for students to have a consistent bedtime, too.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not to mention diet. None of that went away.
Right.
I see different comments and commentary about the COVID weight people are putting on. Well, what about our students? They're stuffing sugar and all kind of junk, and then you want them to go to bed. So we have to manage that diet, exercise, and all of that. Yes, ma'am. That has not changed. Yes, sir. Pay attention to that.
Okay, we have another parent who says, will there be extra help over the summer?
I don't know about Tukwila at this time. I know that Seattle just sent out that that's something they're working on with planning for help in the summer, and it would still be an online format. Even this weekend, we're supposed to have a 4-day weekend. But what does that really mean right now? So,
well, we get to stay in the house another day.
Right. And, I'm not going to check my email on Friday. Well, I'm probably going to check my email on Friday. So, I know that we won't be required as teachers to maintain school all the way through the summer, but I'm not sure if Tukwila will provide an opportunity for that, which we have in the past, so it would make sense if we continued it on an online format.
So stay on the lookout. Check your emails.
And if you want it, call them.
Call them.
Yeah.
That's right.
Get your voice out there.
Flood the voicemail with it, and then we have to respond. All right. How do I measure my child's academic progress? I think you said that's not really the intent?
Yeah, I don't think that, I wouldn't worry about that. I would just maintain that structure and just keep giving them the materials and connecting with the educators. to the extent that you can. Don't let them stop everything.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to make progress if you keep them busy and working. I have that same fear for my daughters. Like, they're reading. I want that to continue. And so we were really structured. We're actually all four of us will read at the same time together, so that, one, we can monitor it, but also like enforce like that skill.
In your opinion, how is education going to change after this pandemic?
My fear is that they will rely on a little bit too much online for all of us, and that we'll start to lose that connection. Who knows what's going to happen in these months until it until we get out of it. I think there will be some universal precautions put in place, but I hope it doesn't change too much, except for one thing. The one thing is we get to reimagine how we open those schools.
Yeah.
And so I know a lot of people have been working in Tukwila to reopen our schools with racial equity and to restructure and address the systemic racism that is in every school district. And so we do have the opportunity to make some deep changes in that type of work.
Yes, ma'am. Awesome.
So hopefully they open better.
Yeah. It's forcing us to deal with some stuff that we've been ignoring for a while.
Yes.
Case in point, if they go digital platform, but everybody doesn't have access to it.
Right.
Everybody doesn't have Wi-Fi, laptop, et cetera, et cetera. Also, you see that in the marketplace. Some jobs will not come back.
Correct, yeah.
But I hope not. I hope that the education system doesn't use that as a cheap out, because by the time you find out that that's the wrong decision, the damage will be irreparable. Meaning that at the moment we devalue personal instruction, classroom instruction, you will have a generation of kids who are emotionally, academically underserved, and you won't be able to get that back. So let's hope we learn the right things. All right, what else you have out there?
I know you said we shouldn't try to educate for a full school day. How about 5 days a week? What's acceptable?
I think 5 days a week is a good goal, and keeping that structure. And sometimes you're taking a day off because you need it, right? Like I said, mental and physical health is the #1 priority. So if everybody in your house is falling apart, you take the day off. Because you're still when you're taking the day off, there's still ways to learn, right? You don't have to actually abandon all of it, but you're just taking some of the pressure off. But then you go right back to it, right? We've taken sick days. And we've said it. We've taken sick days, and then we get back to it the next day. But in a normal life, if I'm having like a moment, like you take sick days, you take mental health days, they're important. So yes, try to keep that 5 days a week as much as possible.
That takes me to this question here. How should I react when I, as a parent, am stressing or on edge to overreact with my child? I can't believe that anybody has that out there.
No, not at all.
Oh, yeah.
I've never overreacted with my own children, ever. I'm always calm, cool, and collected.
Mine are grown, and I still do it.
I did start doing this thing. It was a while ago, because it's middle school, right? Like, I started practicing underreacting. Yeah. So any moment that I was about to overreact, it was a check-in with myself.
Come on.
Of just be like, okay. I've also found myself saying yes to more things because it doesn't harm them for certain, not for everything, but giving yourself that liberty to be like, I don't have to stress over this right now. I can just let it happen and we can get back to it. Because I think that my stress level, when I overreact, it ruins the rest of the day for all of us, and it's harder to do the learning.
Yeah.
And so just like practicing underreacting, which I don't know how to explain it, but just like really doing the opposite of what you want to do. Yeah.
Word, I like that. All right, we've got a few minutes left. One question says, do I focus on strengths and weaknesses of my child? And how do I help my child improve on the weaknesses? I got nothing for you.
I know. I think that it's a little of both, right? My daughter's struggling with subtraction, and like I said, I can't help with the math, but her educator told me, I promise you I will get her through this. So I'm actually relying on her teacher for the weaknesses, and then I'm focusing on the strengths because I know how to work with those.
And it's important to address both. We emotionally, we build their confidence at their strengths so that they can use that strength to have the courage to address the weaknesses.
And remember, part of our education system is social emotional learning.
Come on.
And so bringing that piece into it, that is education.
Exactly.
And so having them talk about their feelings.
I think we're almost out of time. We have some questions coming from the line.
One of our viewers submitted a sheet that has the CDC guidelines on it, and they're wondering, is that what they're seeing circulating on the internet, fact or fiction? Are you familiar with that?
So I'm not familiar with it, and I do know that that has not been shared at the Tukwila School District, especially for the fall. Nothing has been shared with us for the fall. We're waiting until June 1st when the governor and the superintendent start making decisions about moving forward. And so I don't expect any of us to know anything closer until June of what the fall will look like. I know they're thinking about it, though, of precautions to take.
And I would chime in. There's a lot of politicizing of this current pandemic. So be careful on stuff you get on social media.
For sure.
CDC has a website. If you want to know what they're actually sending out, go to their website.
The World Health Organization.
The World Health Organization, your school district, your school, all will update information as we go. The best answer on how they're handling the pandemic is it's fluid. They don't know. This is new. So anybody that gives you concrete, they're probably spinning it. So check the where the information's coming from. And I would encourage you to be careful on linking that stuff, because what I've discovered is even if you click that link, it makes your whatever agency that is access to your you're going to start getting emails.
Yeah, and really contacting the school district.
Yeah, if you want to know what the schools are going to do, check your district, check your school, and you'll get accurate information where they are with the state, the county, the district, and your particular school. Yes, ma'am.
We've got a really good question here. I have a parent, a grandmother also. She's asking, are the counselors still helping children that are in need, or do we need to seek outside counseling?
Start with us first. Yeah, start with the school district first, make contact and ask for the counselors. Because I don't have my own child in Tukwila School District right now, I don't know the access, but Seattle School District, my daughters both have 2 counseling sessions a week with their counselor.
Okay.
So it's worth asking before seeking outside help. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So as we get ready to wrap it up, we want to give a special thank you and shout out to Miss Erin, Herda, Dr. Tibby, excellent teacher and soon to be administrator. Thank you for sharing with us. And again, middle school. And I want to share with a couple of points that some of our elementary school educators shared with us that are important tips and tools. 1, dedicate workspace at home for school. If you can, find a corner, a spot, a room, wherever that helps with the structure. That's only for school work and resources as you have available, computer, laptop, pencil, paper, ruler, etc. 2nd, having an online school block schedule, whatever that time is that your student's class is on, get him or her on the Zoom and all that stuff that they need. This will provide structure and a way to connect with their peers. They need to know the expectations for the school. If you have a middle schooler, average expectation is 2.5 hours. An elementary student, 60 minutes. Whatever it is, make sure that you're communicating that with your student. Even put the timer on it. If you have ADD to students, put that timer on that. Lets them know when that transition is. Help them be successful. Get up, get dressed, brush your teeth. It's school time. Fifth thing is access their teacher for support in schoolwork and technology.
Absolutely.
Most of the schools have, I want to say the Google thing or whatever it is for your student, your teacher to work with your student.
Yeah.
So please take advantage of that. Ability to contact with fellow students so that they can feel some semblance of normalcy. Our students are social creatures.
Yes.
They need to connect with their friends. If that's FaceTiming, if that's phone calling, if that's whatever.
It's like play dates.
Play dates, digital.
Yep, digital
Cyber.
play dates, yeah.
We want you to be successful. It is a challenging time, but we can get through this together. All right? Another thank you to Miss Erin Herda, soon to be Dr. Herda. We have some upcoming things we want to announce to you. Coming up next week, the topic is, where are we and where are we going? Our local city council members, Deshaun Quinn and Thomas McLeod, will be with us, and they're going to give us an assessment of where we are regionally and some insight. And we have another social psychologist coming. We're working on the date, and she's going to give us a presentation on marriage and the stress of couples in the COVID, whether you're married or not, significant others. We had it scheduled for June 3rd, but we're going to have to adjust that date after conversation because they may not be able to make it that day, but they are committed to come. So we're having candid COVID conversations, and if you want to send us an email on topics that you would like to see us bring some experts in on for in the meantime, in the between time, because we're still at phase 1 in Washington. So before we get to phase 4, that's going to be at least 2 or 3 months. So send in your comments, commentaries, or subjects you would like to see addressed. I guarantee you we won't be able to address them all, but it would give us some insight on what you want to hear. Do we have any other announcements I need to make? Oh, Teleos, to our CBSR members, Teleos Men's Ministry is having Zoom meetings on Saturday at 8 a.m. If you're interested in being a part of it, see Brother Warren or Brother Minister Lee Jones. Virtual worship service, Sundays 10:30 a.m., Facebook Live, and how to give, www.cbsr.org, Cash App, Cash, CBSR2, or mail your gifts in to P.O. Box 68545, Tukwila 98168. I think I got everything on here. All right. Special shout out to Fly Right Productions, Brother Keith Williams, making this all happen, to all our staff, production staff that is here. Another special digital side hug to Miss Herda, Tukwila School District, one of their finest, to be with us. We love you. God bless you. See you when we see you. Stay safe. Wash your hands. Wash your face. Keep your mask on outside and your gloves on. I love you. God bless.